Welcome to one more video of the channel. We are going to be using this new format to talk about a very specific concept that came in one of our coaching calls yesterday. For context, as you know, I own a peak performance academy for entrepreneurs and we help them become elite performers, right? We use all sorts of frameworks and techniques and protocols that are evidence-backed to push them beyond the comfort zone and allow them to transform into a much better, higher functioning version of themselves, right? Think of it as self-development that actually works. And the context of the call was one of our clients, which is an entrepreneur. He is on the sales side of things. He's now going to become head of sales in a startup, a co-founder. And he told me, dude, the plan that we have set for the next 12 weeks is too ambitious for me. I can feel how I am more tired than usual and how my mind is telling me to quit some of the initiatives that I committed on doing. And he was asking me whether he should dial those back or still push through the resistance. What was the elite performer way of managing a higher stress workload? Right, so this is the concept of the conversation, and this is a good preface for what we are going to be discussing. The role of the video is to give you my method for virtually guaranteeing success in everything that you try, provided that you're willing to pay the price, right? You need to care about the outcome and you need to persevere until you get it. But if you are hell-bent on achieving something, this is going to work very, very well. And it goes against some of the typical self-development advice that you may normally have heard. Right? Let's first understand who are you right now? You, me, everyone, right? Our identity is wrapped around what we think, what we do, and what we're able to achieve, right? Our beliefs, skills, and behaviors is what shapes our identity. How we see ourselves, how we do what we do, and what we're capable of doing defines the limit of our comfort zone. So our identity equals comfort zone. We do and we believe the things that make sense based on how we see ourselves. So every time that we want to achieve something that is outside of our comfort zone, we're literally actualizing our identity if we're able to sediment a new belief system or a new skill set or a new habit. Every time we expand our ability to do, believe, behave, we are expanding who we are. The problem is that every time we attempt to get out of the comfort zone, we faced resistance, right? I don't know. Imagine this is a dragon or whatever, right? Let's put an R here, right? Resistance is how Steven Pressfield, who wrote The Word of Art, coined the homeostatic impulse we have in our mind and body. Homeostasis is a word that comes from Greek that means same state. So homo means same, stasis means state, right? Basically, we have a feedback loop embedded in our minds and our body that wants to keep us stable, right? So if we're here and we're trying to get here, our mind and body are trying to create reactions that take us back to the beginning point. Why? Because it wants to keep us stable. This is one of the core fundamentals of human behavior, the need to stay stable. Every time we move outside of our center of equilibrium, homeostasis will prevent us from doing it, right? So the goal is not to not feel homeostasis, but instead to not care. The goal is to push through that resistance. Every time you push through the resistance, you have a chance to expand beliefs, skills, and behaviors. In other words, you are able to expand your identity. Now, what is the problem with all of this? Well, the problem is that how you deal with this gives you your performance level, right? If every time you push, you eventually revert back to the original state. So let's assume, for instance, that we're trying to move up, right? If every time we have, let's assume that this is performance and this is time, right? How we deal with resistance really matters, because if we are increasing our performance, which means moving outside of our comfort zone, but we do not sediment that new standard and we eventually fall back, we end up moving in a cycle in which our average performance is low. In other words, we do not achieve much. Yet, and this is the average way, right? Average performers. Right? This is how they get it done. Now, how do elite performers do it? Well, elite performers have a distinct way of improving, because as you might imagine, they also suffer from, the homeostatic impulse of the body. They're no special, right? They just need to know how to deal with it. So the average elite performer, maybe this is not the right, average elite performer will push until something happens and he's tempted to revert back to the mean, but then he's able to push again, and over time his average performance ends up going upwards, right? The average is upwards trending. This is elite performers. And this is elite performers in any discipline, right? It doesn't matter if we're talking about business, we're talking about sports, we're talking about the arts. It doesn't really matter, because it's always the same. You're always pushing beyond the comfort zone until you are able to trigger what it is called a phase transition in complexity theory. What that means is that just as water needs to attain 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius in order to change its state, right, from liquid to gas, in anything that you do, you cannot expect to do it once and achieve a transformation. You must do it enough time until the transformation eventually gets unlocked. But it's the same principle. You must accumulate enough energy until the system graduates to the next level. This is the basis of expanding capacity in systems, right? So my client knew about this, right? Because he's been trained. And he was wondering how to deal with that discomfort, how to deal with that overstretch that he felt he was falling into. Remember, we were discussing identity equals beliefs, skills, behaviors. This is who you are right now. So when you go outside, you face that resistance. We're very cool with that. How we deal with that is what tells us whether you're an average performer or an elite performer. An average performer will try to expand, and as we just mentioned, it will hit the resistance and it will revert back to its previous self. So that is, and it will try to do that. It will find the resistance and then revert back. Move outside, find the resistance, revert back. And this is why average performers end up having a fixed identity, because they cannot surmount the resistance. They cannot power through the inevitable discomfort that comes with pushing outside of your comfort zone, right? And everybody feels this. And this is what my client was feeling. And this is why I told him. Just as average performers have that, let's draw this one more time. All right, so beliefs, skills, behaviors, right? I don't know if you know, but I'm a trained architect, and I'm probably the worst, the architect that draw the worst in my school. All right, so we have an identity here. What do we do with this identity? Well, elite performers will push until they hit the resistance. But then, when the mind and body, homeostatic, remember homeostasis, homeostatic response, hits them, they push through, they let it go. And this new identity eventually becomes broader. They're able to expand this identity because they're able to create new belief or new skills or new behaviors, or all of them at the same time, typically all of them, in order to accommodate for this new identity that they have built. So what happens over time is that they are able to, let's say this is, how we call this? We call this V1, as in victory or version, right? So V1. And then they set another goal here, something that also, let's say that this is whatever, you're an entrepreneur, I assume. So let's say that you realize that you need to record a lot of videos for YouTube to attract qualified clients, just like I'm doing with you, right? Let's assume that you commit on recording 50 of them. Once you are able to install the belief that this is what you need to do and that you're able to do it, you learn how to record and how to talk on camera and how to outline your ideas, and you consistently do it over time, you hit the goal. That is goal number one. Then goal number two is whatever you choose, but eventually you also expand your identity with something else, right? For instance, last Sunday, I completed my second marathon. Why? I like running. I used not to like it. Now I really like it. And it was one of the hardest things that I've ever done. Now, this expanded my belief, skill, and behavior like nothing else because it was a huge ordeal. We won't get into the details. But the idea is that I've set a goal that went outside of my comfort zone, and I eventually conquered it. And then you're going to be tempted to create another goal. And then another goal. And as you can see, from this, every time that you set one of these goals and you're able to do not give in to the resistance, to do not fall for the trap of the body and the mind telling you to stop, to fall for that homeostatic impulse, telling you that it is enough, everything that you're doing is already okay. Every time you do that, your identity is expanding. Your ability are expanding. Your belief system is expanding. Your skill set is expanding. Your behavior is expanding. In other words, your performance is expanding. This is how you do it. So when my client was telling me, should I dial back my routines because I'm permanently exhausted and it is affecting my work, my answer was, who do you want to be? Do you want to be the average entrepreneur who falls for the trap of the mind and the body and eventually stops doing what he knows he needs to do in order to become the next version of himself? Or do you want to be an elite performer? Someone that understands that pushback is to be expected and you still power through. I wouldn't say power through because the goal is not to make it a point of friction, but instead letting it go. Understand it when it happens to you and you just let it go. Over time, you expand yourself. You become bigger. You become bigger. You become bigger. You become bigger. So the comfort zone ends up expanding. The identity ends up expanding to the point that after you have win over yourself enough times, you have what I like to call the infinite comfort zone. The concept of comfort zone is foreign to you because you are ready to tackle anything life throws at you. You are able to go head on to get whatever it is that you decide to get. You're not bound by the limits of your mindset or your skill set or your belief system or your behavioral stack. There are no limits whatsoever to what you can accomplish because you do not self-sabotage. You are able to really push and really move forward. This is a core principle of elite performance, because elite performers okay, you can read that. Elite performers have an infinite comfort zone. This is a truth of elite performance. And you intuitively know this to be true. Imagine that Elon Musk is faced with whatever challenge he's now facing, which is some of the most extreme any entrepreneur can face. Do you think that if he's been told some bad news about how expensive something might be, how dangerous something might be, or how hard it can be to set up whatever, do you think he's going to stop before completing his vision of making man a multiplanetary species? Of course not. You know for a fact that he's going to push. He's going to push, and do whatever it needs to be done in order to get to where he needs to go. This, the infinite comfort zone, is literally the secret to anything that you want in life. And this is what makes champions special. This is what Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Djokovic, whoever your sportive hero is or your entrepreneurial hero is, it all hinges on your ability to cultivate an infinite comfort zone by becoming an elite performer, by knowing how to expand your identity over time until you get here. Right? So this is what I told my client. Listen, you have a choice. You literally have a choice. You always have a choice. And this is another cool concept. You always have a choice. You always have a choice. Let's assume that this is the limit of your current comfort zone, right? I'm not the best drawer. You have this goal. You push. you're faced with the resistance. What is the choice here? Choice one is to go back to the comfort zone. This is the average performer. Choice two is to push, and this is the elite performer. And eventually expand. This is the core concept of the video. Now, in this area is where the battle happens. This battle is always going to be here. Always. There's no such thing as not having to endure this friction. Friction, discomfort, whatever, resistance, whatever. I don't care how you call it, but this is always going to happen every single time. How you deal with this, it's going to make you an average or an elite performer. Now, how does this discomfort manifest? Well, we have two ways of getting, of being uncomfortable. We have the, do you see this here? Yes, so we have the, in the body, this manifests as stress. In the mind, stress, but also exhaustion, right? And in the mind, this is negative thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, right? So every time you are in this battle, you're gonna be stressed and you're gonna have negative thoughts telling you to stop, telling you you're afraid, telling you you're not good enough, telling you that you don't beat this, telling you that you're gonna do it this tomorrow. This is what some people call the inner bitch. This is inevitable. Listening to it is perfectly inevitable. You don't need to listen to this. In fact, once you understand that this is going to happen to you, like every time you step out of your comfort zone, you just wait for it. You just know it's coming. It's just very normal. In fact, and this is something we teach our clients, right? Not only you should expect it, but you should also welcome it. Because let's call it inner bitch, right? But it's technical, it's inner bitch is negative inner voice, which is, you know, the best term for this. Inner bitch. Got it. This is a proof that you are outside of comfort zone. And this is good, because this is what leads to peak performance. There's no such thing as peak performance that does not require going outside of your comfort zone. It's absolutely fundamental, right? It literally is what allows you to tap into that inner gear that you didn't even know you had. Now, there's something that is very important here that most elite performers miss, right? Because it's not about pushing. At some point, there's something called diminishing returns. If you push too hard, but you never rest, you will eventually burn out. Like, there's no way around it. So one core principle is to push hard, but rest harder. Very important. Rest harder. Dialed in your rest and recovery protocols, right? So this is very important. If you do not rest hard, you're not going to get to your goals. You will burn out. Otherwise, you burn out. Cool? Got it. So, we've covered how your identity is your beliefs, skills, and behavior, how expanding outside of your comfort zone changes you if you're able to push through the resistance to really sediment at next level. We have discussed how average performers cannot do that because they're not well trained enough. So when the body gets stressed out or it gets exhausted or the mind starts having all sorts of negative thoughts, they end up falling for those negative thoughts and they burn out and they go back to the original state. Elite performers on the other side understand that there's resistance coming. They see it as a positive sign. They understand that the inner bitch is signaling the way forward and they're able to push through. And then we finally discussed why the elite performers, they tend, and this has been me in the past, they tend to forget that there are limits to your physical and mental fitness, and you should not push too hard without resting, otherwise you will burn out. In fact, 3 years ago, I burned out hard because, listen, I was training for a marathon. Also, climbing mountains. Also, prepping for Ironman. That's on the physical side. And I was also CEO of business, of my biz, and coordinator at university. IE University. Too much to do, and I was not properly resting, and I burned out super hard. It was tough, right? I ended up stopping marathon, climbing, and Ironman to focus on this too, and get back to the gym to reset my nervous system. All sorts of things that do not pertain to this video, but I could discuss that if you want. Let me know in the comments on how I was able to get back to baseline, remove burnout very quickly, and start working very intensely on these two fronts. So I forgot the core lesson, that if you do not rest and recover appropriately, you will burn out. It's not about pushing. It's also about finding rest, understanding how to rest and recover and how to regulate your body, right? Now, last thing of the video that I discussed with my client was, if you choose to push through, which he did, and you understand that rest and recovery is absolutely fundamental, how can we guarantee success? Because listen, we can guarantee success, right? There are, success leaves clues, right? There's patterns, there's things you can do to make it easier for yourself, and if you're very precise in your aim, you will eventually guarantee your goals. And here's what I told him, right? This goes against productivity advice, right? So hear me out for a minute. You have been told that you have to set smart goals, right? Well, that's bullshit, right? SMART, which is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound, is good if you want to stay an average performer. There's two problems with SMART goals. One is that something that is attainable and something that is realistic do not help us get motivated enough. Nobody ever, if you are in business, nobody is motivated by making $1,000 a month. Nobody, right? Nobody. Depending on where you come from, maybe 10K a month is good. For most people, 100K a month is when things start becoming interesting. In other words, attainable and realistic are not going to help you marshal all of your resources to chase them. You need something that is unrealistic and meaningful. Still needs to be specific, still needs to be measurable, and still needs to be time-bound. But it has to be unrealistic and it has to be meaningful. Otherwise, you will not chase it. And this is the concept of stretch goal. Something that really sits outside of your current level of your ability. Something that allows you to really show up with full motivation. If you don't have this, you will not do it because you will not care, right? Back to this example, right? If this is our identity, here, this is a SMART goal. We don't want this. We want a stretch goal. See how it works? This is what we need to achieve. This is what propels us forward, right? So we need stretch goals. Now, do all stretch goals are valid? Do all of them make sense? Do we need to chase all of them at once? Of course not, right? We must understand how to not burn out and not get deviated, because that's the thing, right? It's very easy to burn out if you're not careful, if you're going all in every day on all sorts of things, right? Real entrepreneurs that are able to scale fast, the people that we work with, are very strategic with what they do and how they do it, what the efforts that they put forward. By the way, if you're liking this video, let me know in the comments. If this format is more interesting for you, instead of that much like high editing style, let me know. So, next step, we need a stretch goal. And then we segment, we map out everything that we have to do across 5 dimensions. So I like to work with 5 dimensions. Health, development, as in skill acquisition, you know, they're becoming better. Relationships, crucial. Then we have self-development, or no, self-management, which is performance, and business. This is the things that we help them work on at the same time. And if everything is related to that stretch goal, so their health routines, the skills that you learn, the books that you read, relationship, the clubs that you get into, the conversations that you have with interesting people, self-management, the habits that you create for yourself, your new belief system, all that stuff. And then the business, the things that you actually do, if all of those things are connected, if everything that you do follows a logical, coherent direction towards that stretch goal, eventually you achieve it. I'm very good at drawing, am I not? Right? So Lars, my client, was having problems with the health front. I wanted to dial that back. And I said, hey, no. If this is not compromising your development, your relationships, your self-management, and your business, right? If you are just facing a lot of resistance on the health front, but this is helping you become better at development, a relationship, at self-management, a business, right? Let's say that he has 6 days a week of routine with martial arts embedded, all sorts of crazy stuff. And this is going to give him more energy to devote to his business. Is going to allow him to focus better so he can learn faster. It's going to help him meet other business owners in the gym. It's going to help him sediment better habits and better skills inside mindsets. This is a crucial pillar that he cannot stop doing. This is what I told him. Elite performers are all about pushing, and understanding that this stretch goal is what helps everything make sense, if that makes sense, right? Instead of going the average entrepreneur way, which is trying to go outside, but then they hit back and they boom, and then they try again, and then they try something different, and then go like this, and then like this, and then they really boom, and then they don't graduate, and ends up being a whole mess. They're constantly trapped into the same place. This is the average performer. Right? This is what you don't want. What is the elite performer? Elite performer, you already know it. Is being very strategic, is understanding exactly what needs to be done, pushing through, making it work, and then again, and then again, and then again, and then again. And then again, and then again, and then again, and then again. And before long, you have someone who has expanded their skill set, beliefs, and behaviors from this to this in 1 year. When most people take 1 decade, right? For the average, 1 decade. So this is the core message of the video, right? Resistance is to be expected. Everybody has it. How you deal with it is what is giving you the opportunity to become an elite performer. And once you do this enough times, you end up becoming so much better, so much faster. Your trajectory goes up. Skill set, beliefs, and behaviors end up becoming those of an elite performer. Now, sometimes this is very hard. So last Sunday, literally, I was running my second marathon, and it was terrible. It was a terrible ordeal. In kilometer 2, I had pain in my left knee. Kilometer 12, I had pain on my right knee. Then my left hip, then my right hip, then the lower back. Then I had my calves just wouldn't work anymore. It was super tough, but I persevered. I finished the marathon. It wasn't not the best time. It wasn't brilliant. It was 4 hours and 5 minutes. But still, I pushed through. And now I know that I have the ability to withstand a lot of pain for 42 kilometers or 26 miles. And I am a better person. I'm a better runner because of it, right? So this is always what's going to happen. And if in your case, you need to, let's say, send 1,000 looms to get clients per day, that's a bit too much. Per week, let's say, and you only send 200, you're not pushing, you're not improving, you're not becoming better. If you start consistently doing 1,000, guess what? Very soon, 1,000 will be your minimal standard. This is the core of self-development, right? So I hope this was useful. Let me know if you like the format, if you think this is more visually appealing, if it aids retention, if you can memorize the things that we discuss much better. And of course, see you in the next video.